What's up, Pip Killers? Welcome to episode 2 of the FXPRIME report, a zero logic example. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you get the push notifications anytime I go live or upload a video. I greatly appreciate your continued support. Today's video is brought to you by FXPRIME. Learn what it means to beat Wall Street with the most advanced AI Forex signals by watching the free webinar at fbm.show/FXPrime. That's fbm.show/FXPrime. Stop losing trades. Visit fbm.show/FXPrime now. Okay guys, let's get into the video. Today's video is going to show you a very important point regarding logic when it comes to trading and also when it comes to real life, and how they are not the same, and how you can use this knowledge to win debates and also create a winning trading strategy that holds to logic. Let me start off by saying that there are a lot of people pushing all kinds of arguments that can be, in some cases, completely defying even very simple logic. Let's take a simple yet sad story that I saw on Twitter today, just to illustrate what I mean by a zero logic example. As traders, we'll find ourselves being very logical when it comes to choices and situations. Heck, you can say that it's actually required for us to even succeed in the markets. So when I come across something that seems to just completely defy any kind of rational thinking, it stands out because it's so far from what we as traders encounter on a daily basis. Perhaps the most ironic part of finding these situations or these examples is that you will come across some very, quote, educated people who often lack the ability to really think things through and form logical rules that apply to a situation. Let's do a quick review of the two kinds of logic that I usually use to test trading rules and life choices, and I'll explain them in detail very quickly so you can use them to absolutely crush the markets, number one, and number two, regularly defeat people in open debate. Now, why is debating important? Well, because, especially when it comes to the financial world, there will be times where people disagree with strategy, with outlook, with valuation, etc., etc. If you are not able to come up with a concrete, very logical process to approaching your strategies, then it can be said that you really don't have a strategy. So the first method I call reverse logic, and basically what this means is that in a given situation, if you ask yourself, if the situation reversed, would the exact opposite outcome be achieved? A simple example, you throw a tennis ball straight up in the air in a very straight line. At its highest point, it reverses and it comes straight back down to you. Okay. Now keep in mind this is a straight line. We're assuming that there's no external forces, air resistance, wind blowing, etc., enacting on that object. But the point is that if something is done and the exact reverse course is followed, does it end up at the starting point? Okay, that's number one. That's just basic reverse logic. The next I call traverse logic, and that's basically, given a situation and a set of logical rules, can those rules be applied to different situations or materials, or in the instance of trading, different currency pairs, if we're currency traders, or possibly if you're trading intermarket, different trading instruments. So could you use different instruments to achieve the same goal, so on and so forth. In this example, just a quick example, instead of throwing a tennis ball, would a shot put give you the same exact outcome? Well, yeah, it's gravity. Gravity is a constant on Earth, so it's going to give similar outcomes, okay? And so we can say when this particular situation adheres to math, okay, it's a math-based type situation. It's going to adhere to logic, both the reverse logic and the traverse logic, okay? So imagine what I thought as a trader when I come across a particular news story. Sometimes it's not a news story, sometimes it's just a headline, and sometimes it's just people's actions. But think about this particular situation here, where this particular person is a writer for this newspaper, okay? We'll just say, I don't know what position she occupies at this particular newspaper, but look at the logic that is being posted here. She says, quote, "I'm devastated. We are a progressive newspaper. Last night I was inside when the first brick was thrown." And this is in Raleigh, North Carolina. Now, the idea behind this is that she is trying to use reverse logic, right? I'm on your side. Okay, we're progressive. Why were we attacked by people who are rioting for a so-called progressive type of movement? We're a progressive newspaper. It's like you're attacking your own people. You see, the thing is that what's wrong with this type of logic is a few things. First of all, reverse logic, in some people's minds, the way you treat people is not the way they treat you, obviously, especially when emotions are involved. She is trying to take a mechanical perspective towards this and say that I didn't do anything to these people. Why would they attack my newspaper, especially when I'm inside trying to get work done, minding my own business? Well, that's the problem, you see, that criminals don't adhere to rules. Criminals don't adhere to logic, okay? And people in general that are emotional do not. So they don't have to be a criminal. If a person is emotional, well, that's the very opposite of acting logically, right? Emotions are not logical. So in this particular situation, when we look at their perspective, we can notice an immediate flaw, and that this person is trying to use logic to something that is not mathematical, and that in that situation, it does not work. It simply does not work. And the next thing that sticks out is that we're a progressive newspaper. Like, that also states, well, what if they weren't a progressive newspaper? Is it okay to do it to a right-wing newspaper? What kind of logic is being applied to that? That right-wing newspapers are not on the same side as a progressive newspaper? And so you see that the mindset of this individual is that they've already drawn a line of friends and enemies, and she's confounded. She doesn't understand why the friends are actually doing this to her, but the enemies are not. Wow, that's a very interesting perspective, right? And so we take this very simple news story and we look at it, and we immediately find that the reverse logic is not there. Now, what about traverse logic? The traverse logic in this case would be someone comparing how they feel and trying to impose upon others that that's also how others feel. For instance, in this case, because I fear the police, others are going to fear the police. They're not going to do something that puts me in harm's way because I would never do that myself. I would never put someone else in harm's way. Well, you can't apply rules to you and substitute those as the same rules that criminals will follow. And here is the all-time, favorite point of view between the two political parties opposing the left and the right, where this individual clearly cannot visualize or empathize how other people feel or react in these types of situations. In fact, Let me show you something that I think is one of the most eye-opening components of this entire video and this situation as well. If you take a quick glance at the magazine's website and you type in gun as a keyword, you will see that there are many articles here that actually downplay or take the opposite stance of GU to the N ownership. And when it comes to that, they oppose it quite a bit. And ironically, the situation, you can see there's 3,800 articles, even some of them going back to 2002 or 2004, I believe was the date that I saw, going all the way back. They've held this stance. How ironic is it that when this individual was in her office and the office was being attacked by rioters, she had to vacate to the basement and hide because the police were not there. The police were not available. There was no help available whatsoever. And the most interesting component of this is now this person is put in a situation that directly opposes a point of view that they hold dear to, which is that in certain cases, a GU to the N will be needed to defend yourself. If there was a situation, or had there been a situation where there was no basement available, where there was no hiding spot, she may have been injured and possibly fatally injured. And what would a person in this situation do where the police are already busy elsewhere, attending to other looters, rioters, or even if they were just too far away to get there in time? They don't actually have to be busy. They could just be in a situation where they're not close enough to affect change. You know, there's a saying that goes like this: when seconds count, the police are at least minutes away. And what that means is that there's going to be situations in life where people will simply not be able to help you, and you need to be able to help yourself. Generally, in situations where evil people try to overtake good people, they are not going to follow the law. They are not going to operate within the confines of what most people think, and especially people like this who simply can't visualize that there would actually be a time where they need a 30-round magazine or something like that. Guess what? There are times where this occurs, and it's not every day, and it doesn't happen often. But when you need those things, you will absolutely know when you need them, and you will wish that you had them. And that's the point of these amendments that were made to the Constitution. The idea that we have constitutional rights is there for a very important reason. It's to equalize situations like this, where evil is trying to overtake good because the good sometimes is too innocent or too quiet and lets things get to the point of where they have to be equalized. With that being said as well, it's important to review the fact that logic doesn't necessarily work when it comes to humans and people. When it comes to math, when it comes to mathematical components, logic works extremely well. But when you use logic and you apply it to other situations, you can also see where exactly it does not apply. You can see that when emotion is present, logic is not the answer. So another thing to keep in mind for all of you out there is you also want to know what the average police response time is to your home or office. Now, obviously, you may not know how to do that. Sometimes there's not a way unless you had to call the police prior or something like that. But what you could do is, on average, you could drive to your local police station from your house and use that as a proxy of how long it would take to approximately get to your location. Okay? On average, that's about the time it would take. Now, unfortunately, sometimes that could be 10, 15, 20, even 25 minutes away, especially with traffic. So right there, that tells you that logically there is a reason to have 2A in place, okay? Now, I hope this person has changed their view and that they see that there is a time and a place where certain amendments need to be used, upheld, exercised, so on and so forth. The irony is that I don't think that will be the case. After 3,800 articles, and even after going through a situation where the 2A would have actually been perhaps one of the only ways to defend themselves if there was no basement or desk to hide under, or, perhaps the gang was a little bit bigger. This was a lucky situation, and you don't want luck to be a strategy ever. We'll see going forward if they change their point of view on 2A and they stop writing articles of this nature. I'm about 100% sure that this magazine will keep on putting out the same type of articles and keep their stance. But what I would like to highlight is that anytime you see a discrepancy between what a publication writes and what they actually do, this person ran and hid for their lives. They didn't have the ability to protect themselves in any way, shape, or form. And guess what? That's called luck. So something to keep in mind going forward. I often read articles like this with these small instances of logic that seem to be completely out of place, perhaps because I trade so much and because I think of everything in terms of risk reward. I look at this and I say to myself, well, what would have been the risk of being able to protect yourself? It's all reward. It's all upside. And when you look at it from that perspective and you bring everything back to trading, I like to say trading is an excellent teacher in life, because it teaches you how to look at things from a non-emotional, completely logical perspective. It doesn't work all the time. And that's what this highlights, is that people, especially the people that are emotional and looting, they're not going to operate with logic. But it doesn't mean that you don't have to operate with logic. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again. I really appreciate that. I'd also love for you to head over to my Subscribestar account at subscribestar.com/FITBUSINESSMAN and support my creative efforts by becoming a subscriber and tipping these content production efforts. It takes a lot of time and energy to comb through data and curate the content that we put out, and your support is greatly appreciated. Every contribution helps. Be sure to follow FBM on the following social networks for more content. We'll see you there.